So my name is Asaf Ashkenazi. I'm the CEO of a company called Verimatrix. We are doing B2B cybersecurity here in Mira Mesa. And I'm very privileged to get to know these young fellas here that already achieved a lot in the time that they've been working. And, you know, many times people say you need to get an advice for somebody that has an experience, somebody that already did a lot of things. And this is true because you can learn a lot from experience. But sometimes people that have new ideas, that are younger, their mind is not already fixed on, oh, I did it. It will not work. Oh, I know. It's like millions of times I saw it. There is, this is how it works, and being sure. And this is what sometimes happens to us. And this is why it's really wonderful to see new ideas coming from these entrepreneurs. So I will start with the panelists introducing the companies that they are working, that they founded, and that's it for now. Charlie, you want to be first?
Let's do it. Hey guys, I'm Charlie. I started my first company when I was 15 years old in the sneaker reselling space. So buying a sneaker for $100, reselling it for $200. I wanted to scale this up though to on the order of magnitude of 1, 2, or 300 pairs of sneakers at a time. The only way that you can achieve that is by writing scripts and automating the entire process. I quickly found and realized though, if you try to send thousands of requests to these websites, you're gonna get your IP banned. And so I was like, how do I solve this? Well, I'm gonna make a residential proxy network. A bunch of IP addresses, bring them down to Ashburn, Virginia, where my data center servers were, and route all my requests through them. Turns out I wasn't the only one with this problem. And I scaled that business in high school to a few $1 million in ARR, where I learned how to program, I learned how to do business, and I learned how to think critically, how to solve a problem that I had personally, and apply my critical thinking skills to both the company, but also the greater extent of who I'm serving. However, that went on, that stopped, went to college, studied CS, worked at a few cybersecurity companies, and through that entire experience, I also found another problem. Security operations teams are inundated with alerts. There's a whole lot of work, not a lot of people. The talent's scarce. And realistically, if you cannot respond to alerts in a timely manner, that's an adversary who's coming into your systems, exfiltrating data, and you're left with pretty bad scenario. And that's exactly what my company's trying to solve. Post-event is building AI agents for threat hunting and remediation for security operations teams, so that triage and investigation is fully autonomous and remediation is simply one click, reducing your mean time to remediate, increasing the productivity of your security operations analyst, and bringing better security to your organization. That's what we're building.
And this is very interesting because, Charlie, you know, I think that one of the problems that we have in cybersecurity is not that we don't have enough solutions, is that we have a lot of solutions, and you need to be a genius to configure them. If you do things in AWS, for example, you have thousands of settings. So each company, even if a small company, you need to have experts that they are doing it, and guess what? There are not enough experts to do that.
There's not.
So what you're doing is solving a real problem that many people don't see. We have enough security solutions. The problem is how to deploy them easily, how do we make them simple so you don't need to be a genius to do that, and that if you have a bad day and you configure something wrong, you didn't mess up everything.
Exactly.
So it's really interesting space that needs the attention.
Absolutely.
So Matt, how about you?
Yeah. Hey, great to meet all you guys. So yeah, I guess my background is I spent a lot of my time before I started working on security. I spent a lot of it in high school just doing lots of random projects. So I think I initially started off with kind of working on a lot of ML models. So I'm kind of like, I consider myself more of like an ML head kind of guy. So I worked on using some models for vision to help kind of blind people navigate for first robotics. And I worked on doing that, and we got to top 10 in the world. And then my senior year, I spent a lot of time messing around, just launching rockets. And we also somehow found ourselves a bunch of guys in the park launching rockets, getting to nationals there. So kind of just spent a lot of time just playing around with the world and seeing what I could do with it. And then I think it was finally once I went to college, and I finally started playing around more in the security space. So I started working at a defense laboratory, MIT Lincoln Lab, and I spent a lot of time there training models for red teaming power grids. So there's this huge issue of how you actually manage potential attacks against large networks of power grids where there's lots of vulnerable transformers there. So I kind of just spent a lot of time in crazy isolated environments for like working in virtual machines and all these other crazy configs, just because everyone in government doesn't really want information to leak information out to different kinds of websites there. But that was also kind of at the genesis of the days of ChatGPT, and when everyone started realizing that it is insanely easy to start building things in the world where ChatGPT exists, where I can just ask a model to literally write my code for me, or to generate an email for me, or write some kind of report there. So that was kind of at the same time where I realized it was useful for me. So I started working on a bunch of side projects on my own, and I started using ChatGPT for all that. But then I kind of suddenly realized that at the laboratory, in those kinds of secure environments, that's not really an option, because in sensitive information and kind of like whether that's IP or if that's like other kinds of personal information, it's really difficult to use that kind of information in prompts in enterprise environments without leaking that into ChatGPT or any of these kind of tools that exist out there. And I think that, as we've all seen today, it's gotten even crazier with people are using now Perplexity or Claude or all these other bunch of different tools that are popping up for specialized use cases there. So I think, but just to get to the moral of the story, there's this huge area now of all these AI tools that exist, and everyone wants to use them for personal use and in large organizations. So what I've been building is I have been building a firewall as a data loss prevention tool for these kinds of sensitive information in corporate environments, to make sure that you can't leak that and you are able to use ChatGPT, so that you're not shackled to using writing code by hand in the ways that make it about probably 10, 20 times as slow. And the way that we do that is we allow people to write these natural language rules. So you can imagine the old way of doing it in security is just matching exact words in kind of information that you send out. And that is actually not a great way to look at sensitive information, because it's a lot more complicated than that, because you have IP and other kinds of prompts there. So we let you write a rule on something like, do not talk about my company's internal tool called whatever you want to call it there. And having that level of flexibility across a bunch of different tools like ChatGPT or Claude just gives you this infinite range of possibility for all these new tools today. And that's what I've been working on today.
Thank you. And I was wondering how many people here actually read the full TNCs of ChatGPT before they tried it. Most people don't. And this is a problem, because employees are willingly giving code, IP, leak information, and they try to do their work. So it's even not like somebody that is malicious trying to do something. They try to do the right thing, so it's even difficult to be mad at them. And most companies, including our company, we do not allow to use the tools because of the risk. Because anything that you put there, you give the right automatically to whoever developed the tool, most of the tools. So we just need to ban it. And it's a pity, because it's either that you need to be forced to use things that cost a lot of money, and maybe it's overkill, and maybe that can save a lot of money, especially in efficiency. So I think it's very important thing for companies to have a tool that work properly, because most of the DLPs that I saw, they are not the smartest. They can do the job for, like, let's say, if it's like obvious, but when it's not obvious, and especially when we are talking about using sophisticated tool, they cannot do anything about it. So Luke, last but not least.
Hopefully not. Thank you all for inviting me down to San Diego, by the way. I truly believe this is the most beautiful city in the world. So my name is Luke. I was born in Boise, Idaho. And so, as a kid, I didn't get into coding like most of these guys. I was enjoying my childhood. But in
What is that to say?
Enjoying your childhood. What does that mean, Luke?
Instead, I only got into coding when I was in middle school.
Not a bad time to start.
So I started out just building products that I loved. I mean, I was still a nerdy kid. My favorite thing to do was to play Science Bowl. And so I did it's just a buzzer-based science tournament. And so I would, my first big project was making an analytics tool and buzzer system, which was eventually used for like the largest non-official, Science Bowl tournament, which had a prize pool of like $28,000. So it was really cool just from an early age, just being able to see how many people could use a product that I could build. It was like thousands of people, and depending on my software for who wins or who loses. And so my life's been really really just bouncing between things that are very practical and things that are very research-driven and analytical. And so that was my first foray into doing something practical that I could see thousands of people use. In high school, I started getting into this more researchy side of myself. I'd always been kind of a math kid. I loved calculus and differential equations and all of this stuff. And so I wanted to do some real research. And just stumbling across some Wikipedia articles, I came across this thing called lattice-based cryptography. It's basically a form of encrypting and decrypting data that people believed would be secure against quantum computers. And at least so far, it seems like this is true. It's not very susceptible to quantum computers. But when I saw it, I thought, is this even susceptible to classical computers? So I actually made a classical algorithm that, in many cases, it's supposed to be a very secure algorithm, but I was able to break it in many cases just by running a bunch of lattice orthogonalization algorithms and then applying a genetic search algorithm to basically decrypt keys without having the proper credentials. And so through that research, I met a lot of cool folks at the NSA. I presented at some research conferences, got my first real experiences presenting research, talking to people, learning from the best in the field. And so that was really inspirational for me, and I did that for a couple of years. Now, going into college, I attended my freshman year at Stanford, and I met so many cool people there. And I realized I will never be the best researcher of my time. I don't think that's possible. And so instead, I went back into the practical angle. I started just talking to as many folks in security as I could, and I stumbled across what I believed was the real biggest problem. It's not typically some algorithm somewhere in your code that can be backdoored somehow. It's usually just somebody in your company that doesn't know how to respond to social engineering attempts and phishing emails. And so what we started doing is selling a phishing simulation platform to companies that better prepare companies for the new attacks they'll be facing with AI. Right now, when you receive a phishing email, you're probably thinking something very classic, right? Maybe a gift card, a bunch of gift cards you're supposed to send to someone, maybe a Nigerian prince asking you to wire them some money, maybe even, if you're getting real sophisticated here, a change to your Xfinity bill. But this is changing with AI. One of my friends told me, this is really when I first started to realize I think this is going to be a huge issue. His dad is at the C-suite of a company, and he had received an email that was pretending to be from his sister, saying, "Hey, here are family photo albums. Here's the family photo album for our trip to Tahoe this weekend." Now, the crazy part was that they actually had gone to Tahoe this weekend. Attackers had figured this out on Facebook or somehow else, and they realized this is the perfect opportunity to not just phish this guy who's the C-suite, but actually to phish his son, and to try to get into the family network, into the company network, and eventually all the way down to the company's critical IP. And so that's what we're building for now. We basically run phishing simulations where instead of just these very simple copy-paste things, we instead prepare employees to deal with threats that will include details of their job descriptions, details of their coworkers. They'll pretend to be from your boss or from your coworker, and they won't always send you a phishing link in the first email. I think that's a very simple algorithm that most of us use when we're looking at an email right now, if you can even call it an algorithm, is if there is a link, maybe this is a phishing email. If there's no link, this probably isn't a phishing email, right? But this doesn't work anymore. There are tons of phishing attacks that have taken down many million-dollar companies that there's no link in the first email, and instead they work their way into the company. If you engage in a 10, 11, 12 email long chain, the odds that somebody clicks on a phishing link on the 13th email is almost 100%, and that's what we found through our testing. So we sell simulations. Now the question is, what do we do with this? Training is one answer. We do sell employee training, and it does work. The truth is, you can take an employee that might have a 60% chance of clicking on a given email and take it down to 5%. And I think in the short term, that's one of the best things companies can do to remediate their issues on a human level. But in the long term, these AI phishing attacks will just get better and better and better until it's almost impossible to avoid. So the real solution that I see is that I think humans will, on some level, over time, go down to almost a zero trust role in a company, where no individual human can kind of unlock the keys to the kingdom at a company. And so the way we see our company is that we're really helping companies make that transition from full trust in humans to no trust in humans. So more accurately, with these simulations, we can tell you, your IT team, it's perfectly fine. They're not falling for any phishing emails. But your marketing team, they're falling for every phishing email, right? And so tangibly, I'm guessing you might do marketing. PR. But yeah, so we can tell you, okay, your marketing agency is falling for everything. And by integrating with Okta and Google and Active Directory, we can tell you, hey, and your marketing team also has access to all of your customer calls with your healthcare patients, Somebody could go in and they could, leak every single, healthcare interaction you've had, right? And, this is a real problem that with one of our clients that we worked with, was that their marketing department had access to, tons of different, client records and customer calls and all of this that they shouldn't have had access to. And so we can tell you tangibly, where can you go? Let's say you're at 60% trust of your employees right now. How can you go to 55%? How can you get to 50%? How can you eventually work your way down to 0%, where you need multiple employees working together to unlock anything of value? So that's what we do.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that social engineering is one of the, maybe the number one risk in cybersecurity for the future. But, there is something that I noticed that is very interesting. Out of all the completely different solutions that were described here, we have a DLP, data leak prevention, that makes sure that people will not do mistakes. We have solutions that help people to understand the complexity of security solutions. And we have a solution that help people, humans, to cope with scams and social engineering. And this is because of one truth that you might agree or not. But the human brain, the evolution of the human brain, it took millions of years to evolve. The evolution of AI and the sophistication of the technology that the human needs to use is going so fast that there is no chance that the human brain, as smart as you are, can cope with that. And this is why the solutions that we see here, the solutions that help to bridge the gap between the, let's say, the machines or the algorithms and what our brain is capable, is going to be the future of cybersecurity. I have no doubt about it. And what you're looking here is the future of cybersecurity. And maybe we'll switch a little bit from the technical to more how it seems like you started, all of you, because you saw a necessity. It's not from you wanted to do a company or start a company. So maybe the question is more, how did you get to that at such a young age? Is this something that you always dream about, or it's just because of your curiosity and the need or the needs to solve problems you got there? So Matt, let's start with you this time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think for me, the kind of impetus for why I kind of came across this idea in the first place, I think, is that I think a lot of imagining these kinds of solutions just comes out of having. I think we talked about it like earlier, right before this actually, the ability to come across like a different perspective, I think, is very important, especially in security, since I think that in security, especially right now, I think there's this huge movement right now where AI is changing everything, right? Because I think that today, the kind of existing world of cybersecurity is more focused on the kind of old ways of doing things. But I think for me and my personal perspective, I come across like trying to break things. Like I try to from my perspective, I guess I come from more of like a research background from my time at Princeton when I did research on detecting data poisoning in neural networks. So I think the ability to think critically about what is like my field today that is completely like, not even like trying to apply it to a different field, but I just thinking about the techniques in your own field that even can be useful to other fields. Like my co-founder Charlie, even he comes more from like a kind of signal processing background for machine learning, and I think having that kind of like cross pollination of those ideas is really, really important for especially in fields like security, where I think it's very easy to fall into the trap of, well, we do this the way that we do today because it's what we've always done and it's what is easy today. So I think coming across that with, like in our case, with using language models to actually do this semantic analysis of the information people are sending out and make it a more intelligent solution, I think that comes more from just my kind of personal understanding of how language models work, and just like spending a lot of time playing with these and just tuning a bunch of parameters and all of that. And like I think it obviously can be for other fields and come from different areas, and that's, I guess, exactly what my co-founder brings. But I think that having that ability to generate new ideas and generate the kind of new ways to do things is very important to kind of move everything forward, you know, especially in worlds where something like ChatGPT will come along and completely change your entire workflow. Because I don't know about you guys, but I feel like it's completely changed the way that I think on like a daily basis. Like I just kind of have abstracted my thoughts. So I think including that workflow, not only in the way that you approach your work today, but in thinking about how you want to approach problems in the future, I think is something very important.
Thank you. So Luke, what is your motivation and how did you get to that?
Yeah, so my motivation, I think everybody's motivation, at least from a very early age, should just be curiosity, no matter what you're doing. I was curious in my classes, I was curious, just meeting different people and, doing different things. But really, I just loved looking at different problems. And so it was very important for me to just have a sampling period. I didn't get into cybersecurity or even really coding or research until, relatively late, I think, compared to a lot of the people here. But it taught me a lot to look at a million different fields and, learn a million different ways to build a web app or an Android app or an iOS app, whatever you need to do. And from that point on, I realized that what I love is not so much solving this problem or that problem, but taking a problem, meeting a bunch of cool people who can help you solve that problem, and working together to do something brand new. I've met so many people, even just if you consider the problem of how we put together this conference and how we put together this panel. I've met so many cool folks, many of whom are, in the crowd right now and in the panel, and, just meeting new people is what I live for. And I think I quickly realized that by solving cool problems, by working on startups and working towards something new, it's like the best way I've ever been able to meet new people and surround myself with people from completely different backgrounds, but all of whom have gone through the same sampling process of trying a million things.
Cool. So, Charlie, I'll ask the same question, but I'll add to it because of our time.
Okay.
Because I can continue forever, but people here
too.
probably.
Same.
So, besides what Luke believes is ruining your childhood by doing these things,
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I feel like it was a little unique.
I'm just kidding. What was your motivation? I know that it's sneakers, it started, but also, what is the advice that you'll give to people at the age where you started, how to do it? Because let's face it, you are not the typical person, and probably you can give some advice to others.
Yeah, great question. I mean, I do a lot of what I do by just simply asking why. Like, why does something work the way it does? I did this with my mom quite a bit. She kind of got mad if I asked too many whys. Same with my dad. But I kind of kept peeling back that onion layer by layer to understand, like, what is the root cause of what's going on here? Can I understand it? Can I comprehend it? And like, if I do, how do I break it? Because that's how I like get my serotonin. I like breaking things. I like trying to reconstruct them and then like trying to mold them in a way that I want it to work, even though it's not the intended functionality. And so I started doing this like really early on with like jailbreaking my iPhone, just like uploading and downloading Cydia, putting in new mods, making my iPhone look very different. I then started with like sneakers. Like, how does this website work? How can I like mutate the request in order to like maybe get around a certain security prevention measure? How many requests can I send until I get banned? What's that threshold? How do I just go right under that threshold? And so I just continuously ask this question, why? Relevant to like what I love to do, whether it's like breaking my iPhone or buying a bunch of sneakers and building a collection of a few hundred pairs, or now trying to help security operations teams become more efficient and become more productive. That's like ultimately what's driving me. And I think if you want to create something for the company that you're working at or create your own company, just ask why, find other people who are asking that same question and brainstorm and build these like just collaboration sessions so that you can come up with a better answer to why. That's ultimately, I think that's the most important. And I feel like at maybe my age, like, I mean, I started relatively early, like let's say like 7 or 8 years old. Like I think what you can do in that scenario is just like have the ability to explore. I mean, there's like kind of two trains of thoughts here. Some parents like to be very restrictive on the way they like parent their child. I'm not one to say what's right and what's wrong, but I was very fortunate to have the ability to explore. I had free reign over an iPhone at like the very young age, which is I think somewhat unique. Shout out to my dad for that. But like just not being restricted, like being able to go outside or just play on my iPhone. Like I had that choice. And I mean, I made trade-offs, but I think ultimately the trade-offs I made were for the better.
You know, this, hopefully it will not go away. These things doesn't go away, it's continued. But when you're becoming older, it's becoming just more dangerous. I was kicked out of Chuck E. Cheese with my kids because I found a loophole in one of their machine and I started to get tickets until they noticed that I have so many tickets that they kicked me out. So, you know, that's not something that I'm proud of, but, you know, if you see a vulnerability that they put there, it's not my fault that I take advantage of it.
Exists! Yeah.
They actually had arbitrary code execution on their vending machine. It was
No, it's supposed to be random of one of the things that stopped, but I thought that it was deterministic. I noticed by looking at others. And then if you started from a certain point, it will always finish at the same point. There was no randomness. It's just that people were like doing it at different speed and things like that. So the randomness came from the people that were playing it because they probably want to be cheap, so they didn't put any random number generator in there. So if you started in one point, it will guarantee that you will win and you'll get the tickets. And then at some point, a lot of crowd come and look at you because you're like full of and then it's get the attention of the employees. And
I feel like a lot of software, like in the real world that's deployed in production, is exactly like that. I mean, it's written by people like you and I. Like, we're not perfect, nor are like LLMs perfect either. Like, realistically, we're probably going to be seeing more and more of these like vulnerability types that you can exploit. And like, either somebody's going to be attacking them, or you're going to be proactive in stopping them. That's to be determined, and ideally, it's the latter than the former.
So, Matt, what advice you can give people your age who want to start their own company?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I always view starting. I think it's typically viewed like starting a company is like usually the traditional kind of wisdom around there is just like start something. Like you have to like be intentional about when you start something. But I feel like starting something at like this young of an age, I think it's more about a thing that I honestly feel like it's more of a thing that happens to you rather than like a thing that you do intentionally. I believe. Like for me, I think it was more of something that I came across in my life as more of it was just like an expression of what I like to do in my free time. Like I think, what's it called? Like there was always like lots of random vulnerabilities in the. So there was some research. I remember I was really bored one day during kind of finals in last year, and I just spent like the whole night instead of studying, just kind of playing with the grabbing the API keys that the researchers were using from their Google form because they didn't secure it properly. So I was able to grab it from like the query parameters and all of that. But I think like once you kind of find something like that where it's that you're really doing something that you would do at any point in time, then I think that's when you know that you've found like an idea that you actually want to work on. Because I think especially at this young age, there's really nothing that's a better motivator than just I want to do this more than anything else in the world right now. Like I think me and Charlie we had to do some work with training a model for ourselves, and we told ourselves that we know that we like being founders more than anything else in the world because we hand wrote a bunch of like training data. So I basically spent 2 days straight writing example policies that you would imagine that you would see on like a terms and conditions sheet. I think in any other scenario, if you asked me if I would have done that probably 5 years ago, I probably would say no. But I guess like somehow I found myself like this now. But I think really, yeah, starting a company is a lot about finding something that you really do believe, like either something that you believe in or something that you just, I could do this forever. Anything along those lines, I think.
All right, cool. So we have a few minutes for any questions from the audience.
Where did you guys meet and how did you guys get together as friends? I'm assuming you're friends, right?
That bold assumption you're making there. No, just kidding. But yeah, me and Luke first met over this summer. We actually lived in the same house over in SF. That was quite an experience.
It was a very interesting house, I will say. But yeah, so Matt and I guess go way back now. If you consider 6 months ago, way back.
6 months is way back now.
And then us three, like we only met Charlie just a few days ago in San Diego. You know, going to the conference together.
And now we've gone hiking in the desert at 1 a.m. and have trauma bonded over that.
It was a long night.
It was a very long night.
Especially for you with wearing shorts in the cold.
Shorts and a t-shirt in the desert night. Don't recommend. Just don't. But yeah, I mean, like we were very fortunate enough to be surrounded by, I think like you typically surround yourself by people you admire or people that you find similar interest in. I think that's exactly what we have here. Like very lucky, and shout out to Pavarth for doing that for us. But if you're able to do that, like you just continue to push yourself forward, like the energy, like in the aura, like feed off of each other, and you just like continue like the build, and it's phenomenal.
Best city in the world, guys.
Yeah. I think we're really looking forward to deploying more customer environments, getting more data from like all the different people that we're serving, and continuously building and iterating on what our platform currently has the capabilities to resolve.
Yeah, for me, I think I'm most excited by, I think this is probably like in enterprise, and this is probably like the biggest year so far that everyone is adopting new generative AI tools. So this is kind of the year that everyone has gotten through all the approvals for getting ChatGPT in their own environments and all that. So it's kind of an exciting time for us to also, I guess, be doing more deployments and seeing kind of what's out there and this crazy landscape of all these new tools that are existing.
Yeah, well, ethically, I think this is terrible, but from a business perspective, I'm most excited that there will be a lot of hackers sending out very successful AI-generated phishing emails, and we'll be bringing down, in my opinion, multi-million-dollar companies. You can consider that my bold prediction. And I think we will be in a great position to just say, we will help you deal with this problem. None of us go to college.
Yeah.
We all dropped out. I dropped out after 1 year. These two dropped out,
Don't
after
take
2
this
years, I
advice.
think.
I think college, though, like, it offers a fantastic opportunity to like find other people that you want to build with. Like it's basically a breeding ground for people your age with the same ambition, the same like interest because of your major, to just like start tinkering on side projects and just like take advantage of it. Like you're there for 4 years, it goes a lot quicker than you would think. So like carpe diem.
Yeah, do not recommend. Do not recommend dropping out to anyone. It's a very
I think the time at college is definitely like a special time, I think, and I don't know, I guess it was a decision that made sense for me and what I did, but I think definitely it's spending lots of time with friends and like just being in this kind of cool environment where all you guys get to learn together and learn with each other. That's a very special kind of time there, I think.
What are some of the biggest challenges that you've had to face in creating a startup currently?
I think you can kind of break it down into like a few different silos, but in terms of like going to market and business perspective, building trust with people and key decision makers because of the age. Like you have to go further than somebody that's 30 or 40 or 50 years old to prove that the technology that you're building is, one, going to be satisfactory to their needs, but two, that you're going to be able to continue building for the next 10 years. Like we're frankly new. Like even though some of us have built companies before, we're 22, 21 years old, and you have to overcome that hurdle. I think you can do that by building out like advisory boards, building out a great team and a great bench of people to work with, but it's a problem nonetheless.
Yeah, just to second that, I think that the most challenging part is when you kind of get on a call and then you look at yourself in the camera and you realize that I don't look like I'm some 40-year-old information security officer there. So it's you walk onto the call and then you want to just you have to build out yourself their view of you kind of for who you are and like what you're working on. So
Yeah, completely agree. And my advice to anyone dealing with that right now would just be to lean into it. You can never, like, maybe if you grow out a really thick beard and you wrinkle your skin a little bit, you can look like you're an established professional. But most of us can't do that. Just be young.
Okay, one last question.
What do you guys think about ban on TikTok?
No comment.
I mean, Scout has made a ruling, I think earlier today, that they're going to uphold all of the, I think, 9 contention points TikTok had. So it seems to be that it's not going to exist.
I think the question is, how long would it take from the ban? I think it's like 48 hours until people will figure out how to go around it.
Oh yeah, they're going to download a VPN and be like in Europe at some point.
Yeah, everyone's going to do a VPN, or someone's going to inevitably release like some TikTok clone immediately after it gets launched. Something like that.
Give it 24 hours and NordVPN's going to have a lot of new subscribers.
I think less.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for our panelists. Really impressive. And thank you all. I hope you enjoyed the panel.